Originally, I was going to move in with my cousin in Jakarta. We'd talked about it for months, looking for jobs, splitting rent, starting fresh. But 3 weeks before my flight, her mom got sick, and she had to stay in Semarang to help. I didn't want to cancel my move, so I came alone. Found a room fast through a Facebook group in a quiet suburban area just south of the city center. It was a long, thin house, older, 2 stories, split into 5 rented rooms. Mostly young women lived there, a mix of students and early career office workers like me. The owner, Burina, was nice enough. In her 60s, always smelling faintly of eucalyptus oil and wearing the same gray teak dress. She lived in the small back unit, barely visible, and she kept the rules strict. No male visitors after 7 p.m., lights out by midnight, no loud TV. Reasonable. I took the last available room upstairs. It was long, narrow, with faded yellow walls and a single window facing a brick wall. The air smelled a little off, like dust and something faintly metallic. But I needed to settle fast, and the rent was well below anything else I'd seen. I told myself it was fine. The first night passed without anything strange, just the usual sounds of a settling building. Floor creaks, neighbors turning in bed, a dog barking in the alley behind the house. But the second night, as I lay in bed reading, I heard it. A soft tapping inside the wall beside me, not from the next room, from inside the wall itself. It was subtle at first, one soft tap, a pause, then another. I sat up. My bed was against the inner wall, the one shared with the house's central hallway, so it made no sense. I pressed my palm to the cool plaster. Nothing. No sound. I waited for 10 minutes. Still nothing. Maybe I imagined it. The next day, I asked one of the girls downstairs, Tita, if she'd ever heard anything weird in the house. She gave me a long pause before laughing and saying, "Oh, that house is old. Wood expands, rats run inside the walls. You'll get used to it." That night, the tapping came again, but this time it followed a pattern. Tap, 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 like someone knocking slowly, deliberately. By the third night, the tapping had turned into a routine. It always started just after 1 a.m., soft at first. Tap, 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 like someone knocking from inside the wall behind my bed. It never lasted long, just a few slow taps spaced apart, then silence. I told myself it could be anything. Rats, shifting wood, old pipes. But the longer I listened, the more it sounded intentional. Like a message, or a code. I tried to ignore it, sleeping with music in my earbuds, stuffing towels between my bed and the wall. But the pattern never changed. Same time, same rhythm. It started to feel less like coincidence and more like someone, or something, was trying to get my attention. I asked Burina one morning as she was sweeping the front terrace. I kept it light. "Boo, is there something weird with the walls upstairs? Like animals or something?" She stopped sweeping. Why? I've been hearing knocking at night behind the wall. Her eyes didn't blink. "That room hasn't been used in a long time," she said quietly. "You should sleep early. Turn on Surat al-Baqarah before bed." Then she smiled and walked away like nothing had happened. I asked Tita again, later that afternoon, and her reaction was different this time. She looked over her shoulder, lowered her voice, and said, "Did no one tell you? That room was empty for 2 years. People don't stay long. The girl before you, she left in the middle of the night. Didn't even take her stuff." I pressed her for more, but she clammed up, just saying, "Some rooms just feel wrong, you know?" That night, I decided to record the sound. I put my phone on voice memo, placed it under my bed, and tried to sleep. I woke up at 1:18 a.m. to the sound of tapping again, louder this time. I stayed still, breathing through my nose, pretending to be asleep. After the last knock faded, I reached for my phone. The recording was still running. I hit stop and listened. At first, silence, then faint scratching, then the same pattern. Tap, tap, tap. But right at the end, just before the noise stopped, I heard something I hadn't expected. A voice. Very faint. Female. Whispering something I couldn't make out, except for one word. My name. I must have replayed the recording 10 times that morning, each time turning the volume all the way up, trying to catch what the voice was saying. It was so faint, like it had been recorded underwater. But the final second was clear. A breathy whisper, female, saying my name. Not a scream, not a threat, just my name, like it was being spoken through clenched teeth. I didn't go to work that day. My stomach twisted with dread. I kept the window open and stayed close to the door, trying not to feel the wall at my back. The room felt colder than usual, still and heavy, like the air had thickened overnight. I decided I couldn't sleep there another night without knowing more. So I knocked again on Tita's door and begged her to tell me everything. She looked uncomfortable but relented. "The last girl," she began, her name was Amel. Quiet, sweet, Baru Kurja. Lived in that room for maybe 5 weeks. Then one day, she told me she was hearing tapping, too. At first I laughed, but she looked pale. Said it felt like someone was behind the wall watching her sleep. Tita paused. A week later, she was gone. Left a note with her office saying she couldn't stay in Jakarta anymore. Her room still had clothes, shoes, laptop. She didn't even pick up her deposit. "Did she say anything else?" I asked. She said, "The voice started calling her name." I didn't respond, just nodded. It matched exactly. That night, I didn't even try to sleep. I sat on my bed with all the lights on and the voice memo app open. I let the room go quiet. At 1:07 a.m., the tapping returned, but this time there were 4 knocks instead of 3. Tap, 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 as if the thing behind the wall knew I was listening now. I pressed my ear to the wall. There was movement inside. Not rodents, not pipes, something heavier. Slow, dragging. Then for the first time I spoke to it. "Who are you?" Silence. "Why are you knocking?" More silence. I waited, heart hammering. Then I heard a whisper, barely audible through the plaster. "Help!" The voice was clearer this time. Pleading, not hostile. I backed away, shaking, because now I didn't just hear her, I believed her. I sat curled in my blanket, back pressed against the far corner of the room, watching the wall like it might breathe. I kept hearing the voice, not words, just soft gasps, like someone exhaling through the layers of plaster. By sunrise, I was convinced. There was someone, or something, in there. Not metaphorically. Literally. I waited until Burina left for the market, then went downstairs and found a small hammer in the utility cabinet by the kitchen. I told myself I wasn't going to tear the place apart. Just knock, listen, maybe chip a little paint. Back upstairs, I stood by the spot where the knocks always came from. Halfway up the wall, just to the right of my bed's headboard. I tapped gently with the hammer. The wall sounded off, hollow, like there was empty space behind it. I pulled out my phone flashlight and angled it along the surface. That's when I saw it. A faint outline, maybe a meter tall and wide, a rectangle hidden under layers of yellow paint and old plaster. A door. No knob, no hinges. A sealed hatch. My skin went cold. I gently chipped away at one corner. Under the plaster, there was old wood. Painted over a dozen times, but definitely part of a boarded panel. Whoever built this room had deliberately covered it up. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I wanted to believe it was just some maintenance hatch, an old storage crawl space. But why hide it? At 1:11 a.m., the knocks returned. But they weren't behind the wall this time. They were from inside the panel. Louder. Faster. And then I heard it. A woman sobbing. Just once. It didn't sound ghostly. It sounded real. Human. "Please." The voice choked. I reached for my phone and dialed Tita. "Tita, please come up, right now." She came reluctantly, wrapped in a thin cardigan, blinking in the hallway light. I didn't even give her time to ask. I opened the door and pointed at the wall. "Put your ear here." She hesitated, then leaned in. And when the knocking came again, clear, desperate, she jumped back. Her face drained of all color. "You hear it too?" I asked. She nodded silently. We both stood in the middle of my room, too scared to sit, too unsure to run. "Someone's in there," I whispered. And Tita, trembling, said something that made my heart stop. "Then we have to get her out." Tita didn't sleep in her room that night. She dragged her blanket and pillow into mine, and we sat with our backs to the wall opposite the panel, whispering like children telling ghost stories they half believed in. Except this wasn't a story. The knocks had stopped, but neither of us dared to approach the wall again. In the morning, we confronted Burina. We didn't accuse her. We just told her we needed to know what was behind the sealed panel. At first, she acted confused. Then she got angry. "That room is safe. What you girls are saying is dangerous. Don't go looking for things that are better left alone." Her words chilled me. Not because she sounded like she was hiding something, because she sounded scared. We didn't push further. Instead, once she left the house again that afternoon, we returned upstairs with tools. This time, I brought a chisel and a stronger hammer. Tita stood watch at the door, though her face said she didn't want to be part of this at all. I chipped away at the edges of the panel until I could pull a thin section loose. The smell hit us immediately. Stale air, thick with mold and something sourer. Decay. Tita covered her mouth. Behind the wooden panel was a hidden compartment, no bigger than a coffin, wedged between the walls of my room and the adjacent hallway. Dust swirled in my flashlight beam, and then I saw it. A bundle of fabric, faded pink. Something human-shaped curled into itself in the corner. A body. We both froze. Then I saw movement. Not from the figure, but beside it. A single, trembling hand. It was real. Someone was alive in there. We yanked the panel wider, called out, and a raspy voice answered, "Help! Please!" Her name was Arnie. Mid-20s. Hair tangled and matted, face drawn from dehydration and terror. She couldn't move much, couldn't tell us how long she'd been there, just that she'd been kept inside. Locked in, left to die. She whispered that she'd been punished for trying to move out. "Burina said I broke the rules," she rasped. "She said I had to stay in this house forever." We called the police. They arrived within 15 minutes. An ambulance took Arnie. Officers took Burina. I never saw either of them again, but I'll never forget the moment they pulled Arnie from the wall. Thin, starving, but alive. After they pulled Arnie out, everything changed. The police swarmed the house for 2 straight days. Forensics, investigators, social workers, they questioned everyone in the house. It turned out Arnie had been listed as a missing person for almost 6 months. Her family thought she'd run away after quitting her job. No one suspected she was trapped, hidden behind drywall in a home filled with people. The authorities found signs that the crawl space had been modified, not just boarded, but soundproofed from the hallway. One officer told me that if Arnie hadn't knocked the same way, night after night, and if we hadn't believed her, she might have never made it out. Burina was arrested and later diagnosed with a severe psychiatric disorder. They uncovered records of at least 2 other young women who had fled the house suddenly in years past, most likely scared off, not harmed. But Arnie had stayed too long. Maybe she got too close. Maybe she asked the wrong questions. Whatever the case, Burina chose her to punish. They closed the house for good after that. The other girls all moved out within a week. I stayed long enough to help with Arnie's recovery. We kept in touch, even visited her once in the hospital. She was fragile, quiet, often waking in the night from nightmares, but she was healing. She smiled more each time I saw her. Before I left, I visited the room one last time. It was silent, cold. The yellow paint now peeling in long strips. The panel had been removed, leaving behind the dark cavity where Arnie had been hidden. The wall no longer knocked. It no longer whispered. I whispered a quiet goodbye into the silence anyway. Then I closed the door. I moved to a new apartment not long after. Nothing fancy, but it felt clean. Safe. And at night, when I laid in bed, all I heard were the normal sounds of a city sleeping. Scooters in the distance, dogs barking, the hum of a fan. Sometimes when it's very quiet, I think about that girl in the wall. How she refused to stop knocking. How someone finally heard her. And every night before I sleep, I leave the light on for a little while longer than I used to, just in case someone else needs to be found.